Welcome. These will be my thoughts on X-Men 97 Season 2 Episode 5, Weapon X Lies, and DVDs. I appreciate that technically they could have gone with streams instead of DVDs, but, they support physical media. The episode is rated TV-14, so this video there will be spoilers for this entire animated continuity up to and including this episode, not for any of the episodes that came out after this episode. After this one. I forget if I think the very next one is at least already up, and but yeah, so both X-Men 97 and the original 90s animated series. Yeah, I think we're gonna try to keep it mostly chronological. So really appreciate how much this is. I don't know if bottle episode completely applies, but that it is this separate thing. In between all the massive, we've got the apocalypse stuff in the other timelines, and then, so far the 90s stuff has tended to be, the aftermath of, which, I mean, technically, I guess you could say there's some of that here, but more so this is this personal story. It's about the team and, yeah, Wolverine's old. I forget. He's Weapon X, so they're not Weapon X, I don't think. I do not quite recall what exactly the group is called, but yeah, especially because it's one of those cases where I almost feel like this is literally the perfect time to have this kind of story, because, like, is this really the only thing Wolverine could be doing? Is this maybe not what he should be doing right now? But, that is part of his character, that he will sometimes make a choice that, he is, at times at least, an anti-hero rather than an outright hero. He's also not like a villain, or at least not. There might be some stories where he is, but yeah, that's part of why he's such a popular character. Sometimes a story will, a Wolverine solo story will come to a close, and you'll be like, that was not how I thought he was going to resolve that. Interesting, because sometimes he will do the wrong thing, and other times he will be more merciful than others. But yeah, I I mean, the MVP is obviously, Morph. Absolutely, like, I don't think Morph had a single bad line in this entire episode. And I suppose that does pretty much. And I also really appreciated how much attention they drew to Morph, because Morph is kind of the odd one out here. Because everybody... okay, so I don't know the, Dead Meat, the one who dies just to make sure that we understand. No, this actually was a dangerous crash, even though almost no one at all not only didn't die, but they, like, no one else even got hurt, and they're not trying to do Suicide Squad here. And the, yeah, him I don't offhand recognize from anything else, but the others, I mean, there's that line about, untrustworthy mercs, or whatever the line was, and then also Morph. And he's there. They are there. Morph is there for Wolverine. And that's just the thing. Like, sometimes Wolverine will let you down. And yeah, I mean, I don't think that's really been... because Wolverine didn't really let Morph down in the pilot episode of the original series, even though Sinister had Morph believing that for a while. I think this is the first time where Wolverine actually betrays Morph's trust. And that is a more interesting thing, and I also appreciate that's maybe something, back when... because the original series was, like, for ages 6 and up, or something along those lines, you don't want one of your main characters to be, more, yeah. They did pretty well at keeping, there were some villains who, Magneto was sufficiently complex, but actually having Wolverine go quite that far, they didn't sand off all his edges either. But here, TV-14, that does mean you can get away with this sort of thing, and I really appreciate this is very much an episode that I am so glad it was on this show and not the original, because boy, does all the blood and violence really help sell how dangerous the situation is, and also just lend to it be more, genre fun. Like combines some movies that are perhaps adequately described as B movies, and yeah, I think that does bring us to, yeah, and also just the banter on the, you know, as they're flying there, and the yeah, you know, I mean, I suppose really, other than Morph, I suppose you could say that, I mean, who could have seen that maybe Wolverine was going to betray someone else's trust? Everyone on the helicopter, everyone not on the helicopter. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but I like that reference. Anyway, yeah, I quite like the little, the way they're, threatening each other, and that story, about the, okay, so I hit him with my metal arms, that wasn't quite enough, but then I got out my guns, and that was it, and then Sabretooth, check out these guns. Maybe it's just because I don't know, I guess it has been, but when Expendables 4 came out, I rewatched the first three, and the second Expendables movie has a scene that I was reminded of here, with tough guy trying to flirt with a badass woman on a flying vehicle. And yeah, uh, I really appreciate, like, okay, so I really want to underline, it is not at all a problem with Kelly Hu. I love her casting. I don't think I've ever been unhappy with a performance of hers. I just don't love how they wrote that character, the Lady Deathstrike character, in the Fox X-Men movies. I have so far been very happy with how she's been depicted in this continuity. And I love here because, like, that's the thing, there's been some conflict between her and Wolverine, but at the same time, she is a character who, if you want a truce between her and Wolverine, yeah, if Wolverine, says, well, what about this other guy? You hate him more than you hate me, right? And yeah, like, by the end of the episode, like, that they were gonna abandon him, and that's also why it's more interesting. Like, I would not have bought this if the team were X-Men. I mean, I don't think it's an accident that the one person who's like, no, we have to stay behind and help Wolverine is, technically a team member. Although it was a little interesting how they phrased it, because there was that line about, right, I guess at this point, does Morph? No, because at least some of they must know at least some of the X-Men are back. Yeah, no, yeah, they do. Yeah, I guess it's the fact that not the entire team is back, or that the, you know, Morph and Wolverine are the only X-Men, although I guess, is Wolverine technically an X-Man now? A Weapon X-Man? But but yeah, Morph said the X-Men wouldn't leave Wolverine behind, so I'm not going to either, or something along those lines. Anyway, yeah, and we have the thing about, the question. Why are you here, Morph? You stand out. And then, there's an interruption, and later, you know, yeah, expositionis interruptus, and later the question is raised again, and by the end it's been answered. And yeah, I mean, I could imagine this will complicate the relationship going forward, because, they even made sure to show that bit in the previous line, where Morph. Wait, they showed at least part of that scene. I forget if they showed the part where Morph, as Jean, said, "I love you, Logan." But that's the thing, like, is that because Morph thinks that's what Wolverine would want to hear Jean say, or is it Morph's way of telling Logan in a way that also, allows some plausible deniability kind of thing. I think, was it? I think it might have been Nando V Movies who pointed out that the way Morph was reacting when they saw what appeared to be dripping wet naked Wolverine right out of the shower, that was not an entirely platonic reaction. And I mean, if they actually do have Morph and Wolverine have, you know, I forget if Wolverine is he straight in the comics or has he ever gone? I forget. It's been so many years since I read the comics, but traditionally I think of him as straight, but I could also be misremembering. Anyway, um, but yeah, if Wolverine and Morph actually did have some kind of romantic relationship, obviously, the grifters, the conservative YouTube grifters who would, I'm not saying every conservative YouTuber is a grifter, but yeah, they would, you probably know the ones I'm talking about. I'm not sure I have to name any names. The ones who pretend that, oh, look, this, X-Men 97 is just completely different. It's so much more left-leaning than the original series. And it's like, did you even watch the original? What are you even talking about? The original was also, but they say the same thing about Star Wars, Star Trek. Like, we could go on. I promise I won't. But yeah, those chuds would obviously be really, really angry if Morph and Wolverine ended up in any kind of romantic situation. But there are other reasons why I think they should do it. Um, I think it would be an interesting. We haven't seen that much of Wolverine with others, and it would definitely be the first time that he's been with a teammate. And obviously, more LGBTQIA plus representation would be great. But yeah, I think that does pretty much. I feel like there was one more thing I wanted to say about the right. The part where so the thing about Morph's line about what you're wearing before it became roadkill. I mean, I didn't think that it was possible. I was fairly confident that Sabretooth was one of those, like, so incredibly, super healing factored up that he's literally impossible to kill, but I'm pretty sure he just got murdered with words. And yeah, I really appreciate, because they could easily have gone for just, oh, it crashes, but no, we see a bunch of those green-blooded birds. Like, this one sequence has more blood than the entire original animated series combined, and yeah, that was a really cool way to, yeah. And let's see. Also appreciate how gnarly it was with, I think he was like impaled, the dead meat character. And yeah, they move towards the base, and it is later pointed out all of them were at one point or another separate from the rest. And I am really, really glad that every so often Marvel will do an adaptation. They'll do story that I would say is very similar to The Thing, the 1982 version. Yeah, it's that they continue to be amazing. And yeah, I have more to say, but I think I'll spread it out over the rest of the video better. Viewing experience. Will it lead to? Anyway, I'm done yodeling. The yeah, so they get to the yeah. It was really great when so they get attacked by some more animals, and Wolverine is like, yeah, I'm here to get my steel claws back. I thought I might need them. Guess what? I just stabbed a polar bear. And that was also a very effective way of we get some action there, and also early in the episode, because for the next little bit it's going to be more, there's some exploring and such, which I absolutely loved. But it's an action show, so there's an expectation that every so often you're going to have an action scene. I thought this was a good way to do it. But also this thing of, you get a little bit of the rivalry between Sabretooth and Wolverine, and yeah, making it clear that these are very difficult to take out. And I think that's when Deathstrike starts calling Morph Tomo. I'm really glad that that was explained, because I do not remember hearing about Tomo before. Um, but yeah, and it is kind of, it's, once Deathstrike is explaining, the way that it just applies so well to the character, I did feel a tiny bit, that thing where sometimes a writer will just be like, well, I put all this time and effort into researching this. I'm just going to write some of my findings into the script, into dialogue or something. But I did think it worked. And yeah, it is very much this thing of, because that's the thing, they keep calling Morph, let's see, I think it was Sabretooth who called Morph a pet, ex-pet. And Deathstrike says, you are like this mythical fox. They keep using these words to describe that Morph is really going above and beyond for Wolverine. This is not the kind of situation that one would expect to find Morph in, and everyone knows Morph would not be there if not for Wolverine. And I think that is when they arrive. So yeah, they manage to, to get inside, and they're walking through hallways and rooms of this like sci-fi facility that they then also kind of find themselves trapped in. No readily obvious means of escape, and there's, these bloodied bodies strewn about, and they're trying to figure out what even happened. They're dealing with this kind of sci-fi horror, and yeah, I don't know. I guess the Von Braun crashed to Earth here, and I'm here for it. What can I say? Like, this is, inject it into my veins. I absolutely love this kind of thing, and the way that they find all these bodies, and then one that appears to be a still living human, and then the way that the voice distorts, and these little details, and then so the stuff bursts out, the skin tears off. I cannot put into words in any language that I personally speak that adequately describes how much I've wanted to see Brood appear in one of these adaptations, and did not disappoint. 100% here for it. Holy crap, that was awesome. This was actually, I thought, I don't think I ever ended up saying it in, I forget, maybe I did say it, but in the, there's an there's an episode, I think it's even pretty early in the original series, the original animated series, where there's like, oh, crash spaceship, there must be aliens inside, who is it? And I was sitting there hoping for Brood, and yeah, to get them here, just so awesome. And yeah, the fact that they actually use it to do basically the Thing kind of story, I'm so here for it. It's too much. It's like a sugar high or something. And the yeah, I think that can you tell I really loved this episode? It's almost sad that it's over, but yeah. And and the thing is, technically, there could be more Brood. Presumably not going to be from this lab. I mean, I guess, do we know if any other Brood escaped the lab and are just chilling, literally, outside, like the... bears and birds. Oh my. And the yeah, so they they get the map, and there's the talk about like, okay, so you know, we don't need to go to the adamantium chamber. Nobody, I mean, we all agree in this entire group, nobody's going to go to the adamantium chamber. That would just be silly. Like, we have a completely different mission objective here. And you know, just so happens that it's the opposite direction from where some of them actually are going. Just to really hammer home, this wasn't, Wolverine doesn't get lost. They knew, he knew what he was doing. And I kind of like the line about, well, the oh, right. Okay. So what I said at the start, I don't know, somehow I forgot. Yeah, this episode set in 97 wouldn't be streaming, obviously, would be DVD. But yeah, I like the line about I prefer Laserdisc. That was actually how I just remembered. Oh yeah, 90. Because when was the last time you heard someone say Laserdisc? Which is actually kind of funny because I don't even know if anybody still has them or like sells Laserdisc or anything. There's actually, and it's, yeah, there's a Danish online physical media store, digital storefront that's called the Laserdisc because it was probably made back when Laserdiscs were thought, oh, this is going to be the new big thing, And I suppose... Oh, I like the line about, okay, calm down, alphas. Morph with the... just cutting through the crap. And I think that is... I mean, Morph essentially might as well say, okay, we all think you're really cool now. Let's take it down a notch, okay? And which is also just it's funny because there is some like when people say alpha, they might be referring to like a person who is behaving like an alpha rather than I mean, I appreciate technically a Wolverine and a Sabretooth are not literally the exact same thing as wolves, but and I'll also just briefly acknowledge, by now it has been disproven it was a misunderstanding, but it's not going to stop the self-described alpha influencers and such. So Andrew Tate is possibly in trouble again. Yeah, interesting. I don't know. I guess maybe you can't run from consequence forever. Here's hoping. And I suppose that does pretty much bring us... Yeah, so they're going around inside. I also really appreciated that we don't see what happens with Wolverine and Maverick. I don't think Dead Meat was actually called Goose, was he? And then, hear over the radio. Yeah. And let's see, yeah, very clever the way that, so their ride crashes and they decide to go find another one. And there's the thing about like, okay, first things first. I'm a craftsman. Which is also because that's Wolverine saying that because Wolverine doesn't want to leave yet. He wants adamantium. I do appreciate that despite all the memory erasure, they all remember their crash course on how to operate the adamantium injector. I don't know, I guess it's possible that the buttons are just that obvious to them. I don't know, I just kind of feel like with the soldiers be in the control room while it's being operated? Like, I don't know. And I appreciate it. It's necessary for the plot to work out. Anyway, that is when there's that's when we get some of the meaty goodness of the Thing story. Everyone it's confronting each other and being like, well, I didn't see you where although I suppose maybe me calling it the Thing is maybe it's actually more of a Amogus thing. Still haven't played that. I do own it on Epic. I probably will play it at some point. Anyway, I think that does bring us to, yeah, and we have the thing about like, well, Wolverine must have, you know, the thing about he must be there for the adamantium. Really, really badass of Morph to block their path, shooting the. I like that they don't even slow down. They don't even say anything. They just like it just goes without saying. Of course, we're gonna leave behind Wolverine. What are you talking about? Like, but Morph shoots the lock mechanism, which this is not the only sci-fi property where that just instantly closes the door. Which would that be how it worked in real life? I don't know, but I don't know. It's convention. It's a trope. I appreciate that, and yeah. So they and the little fight between them, and I have to agree with Nando V movies here. I don't really know what the limitation is to Morph's power because it's okay. So can transform into anyone that they've ever seen and apparently mimic their power, but what about like making Silver Samurai swords and Thor's hammer Mjolnir? It's just like it feels a little bit yeah. Anyway, I suppose that pretty much um I have to wonder if the reason morphed into Deadpool was just so they could put it in the trailer. Also noticed that the Wolverine line was slightly different in the trailer. He said, "We're back." Here it's "I'm back." But yeah, it was a good trailer. It was, yeah, worked well. And yeah, very clever. I love that Morph just says, "I have a plan. I have part of a plan," and we don't see exactly what it is before it's already underway. Very heist editing. Love it. And I almost feel bad that the Morph actor didn't get to, but I really appreciate how well the Cyclops actor did emulating Morph's tone. The part with you know how mad Jean is gonna get when she finds out you're not following my orders as your superior? I'm just gonna have to smooch your extra tonight. Yeah, if Wolverine's in there, there's no way he's not gonna fly into the adamantium rage over that. 100%. Doesn't even have adamantium in his body anymore, but that's gonna do it 100%. Yeah. And yeah, Sabretooth, of course, not being able to just let it go, feels the need to, yeah. Um, and I think that is. Oh, right. Seeing Omega Red again was also obviously awesome. Um, and the thing about how Omega Red cannot be taken over by Brood. And yeah, great fight. Good use of the, you know, Omega Red's got the ability to shock anyone he's caught with those metal arms, which, yeah, that would work really, really well on someone like Lady Deathstrike with the whole cyborg thing. And Morph doesn't quite have the. I mean, there's a lot of things that Lady Deathstrike just shrugs off, but electricity, like that, that's not, and Morph does not really have, at least not in the normal form, the kind of system that could resist that kind of thing. And yeah, Wolverine fighting Omega Red, never going to turn that one down. And I suppose, oh wow, I really, really loved the part where they also went, so they decided to go beyond, not necessarily Thunderdome, but the Thing, and have Maverick go, "It's game over, man, game over." Which, yeah, that is also a quite good place to, there is definitely an aliens thing going on there, especially that part where they're like forcing open a door and rushing in and attacking. It's just, yeah. And I suppose that does pretty much. Love the visual of Wolverine all brooded. He was already brooding, but now he's also brooded up those teeth. Yeesh. And Morph talking about, like, I'm not gonna give up on you because you didn't give up on me. Just, I love the melodrama here because, like, that's already kind of a soap opera-y line, but meanwhile, because it's comic book, it's taking place in the middle of this big fight, and yeah. And yeah, it was very cool, the bit with like picking up and throwing Wolverine into the adamantium chamber. And yeah, clever, killed the brood because they couldn't survive the adamantium bonding procedure. And I suppose that does pretty much get us to the ending. Yeah, very, very cool with the core is blowing up, as it is wont to do. Sometimes I wonder if cores are actually there for any other purpose in certain sci-fi stories. And that fries. I mean, I think we're supposed to perceive that as all of the brood, but again, hypothetically, maybe some got out. That was also great. The thing about, maybe they got in, maybe they got out. And they fly away. And yeah, the Morph with a fantastic line about, apology, with the thing about, it was, if you are asking, then you don't really need it. Something along those lines, And yeah, moves away. And yeah, the thing about, I thought all I was an animal with claws. Well, Logan, I think that's very sad. And that is the thing. Like, yeah, he genuinely just can't feel like himself without it. And on the one hand, this certainly wasn't very long that he was without it. Like, this is only episode 5. He lost them at the very end, on the finale of season 1. Or I guess penultimate. Yeah, something like that. And now he already has it back. He wasn't even in all of these episodes, But on the other hand, if it complicates the relationship between Wolverine and Morph, then I am all for it. And yeah, either way, this was definitely interesting. I really appreciate them being willing to make Wolverine more, complex like that. And it could also, I mean, there are in real life a number of people who went through something tough, and even after it was technically fixed, they still, some have PTSD, for example. And that could be something that they could, maybe he's gonna wake up from a nightmare and be like, was it really just a dream? Did I get my adamantium back, or do I still not have it? And I suppose, I think that's that. Let's see. There's at least one more thing that I really wanted to make sure to say about this episode. Really looking forward to the next one. And I thought they got a lot of good stuff out of the core concept here. And right. So, at one point in the episode, there's the line about, I'm going to go find us some wheels. You know what? That is proactive, solution-oriented thinking. I love it. I'm here for it. One note, could you try to make sure that those wheels are also attached to something? Because otherwise it is still going to be a very long trip home.